Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole. I am obviously Michael Cole, and I've got here with me today my friend Bryan Pressley.
Hello.
And so Bryan and I will be talking tonight about um, intellectual curiosity. And so to give you, Bryan, to explain to you why this kind of clicked for me this week, because we had talked about a different topic originally. Sarah and I were talking about something, and and something I forget what the original conversation was even. Um, but then I mentioned something that kind of made I said, "Oh, this has to be the subject for this week." And basically, it was so her mom used to when my nephew was like 1 or 2 years old, he thought fart jokes were hysterical, and her mom used to say, he's so smart because he thinks fart jokes are hysterical. And I said, well, fart jokes are like the least common denominator, or what, the most distilled dumbed down humor.
Yeah.
And she would say, oh, no, it's a smart humor because I don't get it. And it's
Huh.
it's stuck with me because it's been years, and it's stuck with me because not that I agree with the sentiment or with the statement that she made, but the sentiment I think is perfect because we as a society largely, and I know I'm hugely guilty of this, but I see it all the time. We tend to, if I don't get it, it must be dumb. And she had the opposite. She had the, if I don't get it, it's because I'm dumb. And she wasn't dumb, obviously, but the idea that she didn't put the blame on the thing she didn't get has stuck with me. And my instinct a lot of times still is like, ugh, I don't like that thing, but I have to fight that. But so it just got me thinking about curiosity and this idea of kind of being open to new stuff and trying to like intellectually like and thinking about
Right.
things outside of what we would outside of our not I don't want to say comfort zone but outside of our baseline essentially.
Right. Yeah. Like whenever I think about intellectual curiosity, I think about the people who, um, they see the world as they were taught to see it. Like,
Hmm.
for example, um, a lot of the people, um, like they think that the country is great, but they've never been outside of their own town, so
Right.
they think everything in their town is the country, and they're not curious to learn more about what else the country has to offer. So it's very interesting to me how people just kind of stick with what they know and don't really want to um, explore beyond that. And like
Yeah.
I like me personally, I always like to think that I like to learn new things. I'd like to. I don't want to just exist in this world. I want to thrive, and I want to like learn more about it. Maybe not too much. Like there's like however many. There's like 99% of the species that exist in this world we still haven't discovered yet, or something like that. And
Right.
yeah, like maybe not that far, but like if I learn about axolotls or something, I'm like, okay, cool. Like what about them? I'm like, oh, they're adorable. Okay, but what else about them?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like I obviously I took a really long time with college and stuff, but after college, like when I graduated, I was bored, and Sarah was like, "Find something to do. You're driving me crazy," and that ended up being just more classes. And then when I was done, classes turned into a master's degree, even though it just kind of started as a way to kill boredom. And then you read a book about, and there's a lot of learning that is essential, and I don't really consider that the same thing as
Hmm.
obviously like learning how to fix the toilet plunger, or the flusher or whatever. It's a skill, or like it's a information you need to know kind of thing. Whereas, like you said, with axolotls, there is almost no way in your life that knowing about axolotls is going to be critical information. And I think that's kind of where a lot of us draw the line. Because I think that same level of that idea of, like, if I don't know it, it's dumb, only
Yeah.
seems to apply to those things that don't really matter. So, like, nobody thinks, oh, I don't understand um uh algebra, or I don't know, calculus, so it must be dumb. Like, so I
Right.
think anything that's got a very clear reason, people kind of are actually able to wrap their head around. But when it is axolotls, or a lot of times I think it's more taste than it is necessarily learning about something. But, like, we you hear old people talking about, like, the I don't like rap music, or I don't like Facebook, or like,
Yeah.
whatever like old man shakes hand at cloud kind of thing, tends to be that same level of, like, instead of being either intellectually curious or just indifferent, there's this,
Right.
like, resistance. And that resistance, even though, like, sometimes indifference would be fine, uh that resistance kind of, like, stops a lot of people from in investigating and learning about it. Even though, I mean, how many people's lives have been, like, actively positively influenced by Facebook, for example.
Oh
Um,
God, no.
but and Facebook's a terrible example, because I think that we've kind of, if there was a bell curve to its benefit, I think we've overshot that by now. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
rap music is a great example, because I've heard a million old people say, like, I don't like rap music. It's crap music.
Well, yeah, because like it's not what they're used to. Like they grew up, like Motown or jazz or uh, like whatever the hell disco was. But like they hear this music today, and you know what? It's funny. I am the same way. Like I just turned 40, and I listen to the music that my daughter listens to, and I'm just like, this is terrible. I hate it. It's like
Oh yeah,
I think it's like a generational thing, but like it doesn't mean that I'm not curious about it. It just means that it's not my style.
yeah,
But there are a lot of people that like they hate it because it's different from, like it's different from what they're as you were talking, one thing that popped into my head was there's a level of fear that goes along with knowledge too, because like as long as you don't know what's happening,
yeah,
everything's fine. Like the whole ignorance is bliss thing.
yeah,
Like um, if you don't know there's a spider in the room, then you're fine. But as soon as you see it, like you're pretty much done.
yeah,
And like having that knowledge. I mean, I guess I guess what we're talking about here is basically like looking for the spider.
right,
Like is there a spider in here? I'm curious, is there a spider in here? And if so, where is it? And if there's not a spider in here, then okay, we're good. But if there is, then I need to know where it is.
yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about, like, sausages. Like, I like sausages, and I never want to talk about it more than that. Like, and I don't want to know anything more. And I think there's places in life where intellectual curiosity is a bad thing. Like, I don't want to know what's in that.
Yeah.
It will kill that enjoyment for me.
Yeah,
But
never think about chicken McNuggets either. Don't, just don't.
I've heard the thing about McNuggets and the pink, what do they call it,
Pink slime.
pink
Yeah.
slime. But to be fair, if you just put raw chicken in a blender, it would be pink slime.
Yeah, true.
Because they're just gross. Like raw chicken is just gross pinkness anyway. So I don't know that
But
I.
now we're talking about putting it in a blender, and it's giving me like these images of. Never mind. What were we discussing?
Yeah, I guess I guess well we that's a little bit of willful ignorance is the other side of the coin, but
Yeah,
yeah, I don't mind willful ignorance when it's allowing you to enjoy something. But when
true.
intellectual, when the idea of just being open to something is is stopping you from being like, I don't want to try this new thing, that and that, is, oh, like I'm not enjoying something because of that. Like ultimately I side on whichever gives you the richest uh life experience. So like,
Yeah,
and that is a, you know take it as it comes kind of situation. But
yeah,
in a
yeah.
lot
Like,
of ways I think there's a just a dynamic of like, I don't want to know. I don't think that there's any benefit to this, so I don't want to know about anything of it.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm like not even stopping at McDonald's, but just meat in general. Like, I love meat. I love burgers. I love steaks. I love bacon, chicken, fish, like all that stuff. I remember seeing when I was younger a video of how ham is harvested, I guess, for for lack of a better word. And
I don't like that. I don't like that terminology.
sorry, I couldn't think of anything else. Like how I mean, it's not made. It's
No, I understand
it,
what you're saying. It's not a great
how about
mental
how
idea.
about extracted? How about extracted? Is that a good? Is that a better word?
I think that might have made it worse.
Anyways, so I watched a video on like how ham is packaged. Let's call it packaged, and
Sure.
and I kind of repressed that memory because I'm like, nope, I didn't know because I need to enjoy ham. Ham is like, yeah, like I was saying, ham is one of my favorite meats. So, like I have it for Christmas, I have it for Thanksgiving, and um, not knowing how it got from where it was to my refrigerator, that that helps. Like it helps with the whole, like enjoyment of the ham. So yeah, like that particular memory I repress because I don't want to think about how that happens. I just want to go to the store, grab my my honey baked, and throw it in the oven.
Yeah, the ham thing. The meat thing is like, meat is kind of a deep dive for me. Where I think if I think about, like, the more I prep meat myself, the more I don't want that meat anymore. Like anytime I make a recipe and it's like, now pull all the tendons out of the chicken, I'm like, all right, I think I'm no longer eating chicken anymore. Uh, and then like you make it and it's the best. Like the more disgusting your job has to be to prep it, the better the food is.
Hmm.
Just because like you did a better job prepping it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I don't want to do that. It's gross.
Yeah, it takes your appetite away from it.
Yeah. One thing I kind of, and I typically don't get political on this podcast, but so we can talk about politics in the abstract and not any specific issues. But
Okay.
it does, I think, really apply to this idea of willful ignorance or and curiosity. Is and I'm curious to your idea, your thoughts on this, but something that we have a hard time, I think, as a society, and maybe this is probably the U.S., but it could be Western culture in general, is the idea of, if I don't know what it does, it doesn't do anything important. And we hear that from politicians. I mean, we hear that from dumb politicians a lot, but we also hear that when they're trying to get us to vote for them or vote against the other person, or whatever their thing is they throw at us this information. Like, okay, like I said, I don't want to get too specifically political, but you think about uh, the old Texas governor that wanted to gut the Department of Energy, and then couldn't think of the name of the Department of Energy, And
Right.
when it came, when he became the head of it, he very clearly didn't know what it did. And it's like, yeah, well, it is hard to justify something that you don't understand, but there's a lot of things that I don't understand that other people could justify, and I'll just leave that to them. And it's impossible in our lives for us to know everything we need to know to be informed, whether it's politically or ethically or any other way. But to some extent, we just have to trust that just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not valid.
Right. Yeah, I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking about an interview I heard earlier where this person didn't know how an electric car works,
Yeah.
and he said, "What did he say?" Uh, he said like what is an electric car like with a solar panel on top, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
like like
Well,
how do you not know what an electric car is?
even worse than that, there was a thing in the news in the last week about Air Canada or Canada Air or whatever it's called, is going to be implementing electric planes in the next few years, and I don't know what
Hmm.
that. And a politician, to I can't stay apolitical on this topic because you'll know everyone with a half a brain will know that it's a right winger that said this.
Hmm.
The person said, "How's that going to work? Is it going to be like in the days of Egyptian slavery where they had the people rowing the oars? Like how are they?" And it wasn't. I mean, I think that it was a little bit facetious, but I don't think it was like I think they genuinely didn't understand the idea of a battery.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it was, like ultimately, it's at that point you got to be like, okay, I mean, I'll be honest, I do not understand the all of the inner workings of I don't understand almost any electronic devices how they
Oh
really
yeah,
work. But
me either.
at the same time, I understand that they work, and
Exactly.
sometimes that's got to be enough. Like, like I've heard the stories about people trying to make a toaster from rocks and stuff, and trying to like
Hmm.
get to that point, and it's we have to be able to live to some extent built on the knowledge and discoveries of the past without having to learn all of them, and we have to just kind of understand that it works and not why it works on a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, really. I like as you were describing that, I was thinking like, yeah, when I was younger, I would um I would take stuff apart. Like I took apart remote controls, I took apart radios, anything that I could get my hands on. If it had screws, I would unscrew it and see what's inside. Wouldn't understand any of it. Like it would be this uh, green board of silicon and a bunch of like little diodes and other little protrusions coming off of it, and I had no idea what any of it did. However, I knew that all of them working together, created, the video game picture on my screen, or all of them working together would, like create the infrared signal that allowed me to change the channel.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
that, yeah, that's all I needed to know. But I wanted to know more, but it was like, okay, well, I've reached the extent of what I can handle intellectually. But
yeah.
yeah, like the people today, they're like they see wind turbines and they ask, what happens when the wind stops blowing? And it's like we store the power. like what, like why haven't you figured that out? Like
Yeah.
there's something, even if you don't know how it works, knowing what the benefit of the thing is probably still a good thing. Like solar panels. People are asking like, what happens when the sun goes down? Like, well, we store the power. Like it's supplemented by the power that we already have until we can figure out a way to just wean ourselves off of it, because like we need ways to if we want to maintain the lifestyle that we have, we need to figure out ways to keep the energy coming. Eventually, we're going to run out of fossil fuels. But like the solar panel thing, like we're going to be able to keep the sun. Like I guess if they can't monetize the sun, they don't want to do it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm getting off on kind of a tangent here. Like I'm getting on my little soapbox, but yeah,
No,
like
I 100% like I just get frustrated because imagine where we could be if just over the course of our lifetime, if people had stopped trying to just like the very problem we're describing, if the majority of people didn't fall for that, where would we be right now? Like,
oh my god, like we were supposed to be in the age of the Jetsons by now, right? Like when did the Jetsons take place? Actually, no, the Jetsons take place couple decades from now, but still,
yeah,
like we'd be at least at the beginning of it. Like we would be testing out flying cars maybe, or figuring out ways to keep the environment clean. um Actually, as I'm thinking about it, the Jetsons, their little sky rises were above the clouds. Below the clouds were like a big pollution storm. I guess they gave up on it. But
well,
even
there's a theory that below the clouds was the Flintstones, and that they were
they
doing
existed
they were
together.
mining all the stuff that needed for the Jetsons, and that's why they had like cell phones and stuff.
That is an amazing theory, and I will have to explore that later.
Yeah. There's also a crossover movie from when we were like
Oh, I remember
preteens,
that.
and so I think that plays into it. Like, we'll see, they existed at the same time because I don't
Well,
think time
there
travel
was
was
a
in.
no, there was a time machine in that movie.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember the Jetsons meet the Flintstones. It was like my favorite movie when I was like 10 or so. Like I love that movie so much. Anyways, but yeah, like that is an interesting theory. But even then, even in that fictional world, somebody at some point was like, "We need to do something. We need to do something. So I need to figure out a way to do it." Like they explored ways to, raise the buildings above the clouds. They explored ways to keep flying cars in the air. Came up with a whole traffic system. Um, I mean, we kind of have AI robots right now, but nowhere near as sophisticated as Rudy, who was George's little computer assistant at work.
Yeah.
Um, don't ask me how I remember that. Like it's like my brain remembers like just the most random details of things. But at some point, yeah, like even in that fictional world, somebody had to have the curiosity to wonder how to do the things to make that world happen.
Yeah. No, that's that. And I don't think we would ever get there, but like to that level. But the idea that we could be not dealing with climate change anymore, or have it basically handled at least. The idea
Yeah.
that we could, I mean, my imagination is limited as far as technology, so like I can't think of anything super cool that we don't currently have. But like, I don't know, just it would just be such, it could potentially be so much better
Oh yeah.
with.
It definitely did. And you just said that your imagination is limited for technology. I have this theory, and I hope I'm incorrect, but I'm not being proven to be incorrect currently. But I have this theory that like maybe 20, 30 years from now, like we just won't have enough people intelligent enough to maintain what we already have. Like our computers are going to start dying out and nobody will know how to fix them because we spent all this time, destroying the education system,
Yeah.
and nobody's really trying to learn how to keep computers going. Again, I hope I'm wrong, and we're doing okay so far. But like the as long as college keeps getting more expensive, as long
Yeah.
as um, schools remain underfunded, and also as long as people just aren't wondering how to make their lives better,
Right.
um, we're going to eventually just start not being able to keep up with what we have, and idiocracy will be a documentary instead of a farce.
Yeah. I want to dive into the idea of college for a second, because college is something that I think a lot about this. About obviously we're of a generation where college is uh inhibitively expensive,
Hmm.
and we've also, we've grown up with the being told college is what you do, and that college gets you the better job, and you know there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of things that we're taught about college, and that's what, and now where a lot of people are starting to see, like, oh, college doesn't necessarily get you a better job, and college isn't. And we've had a lot of push back, or at least there was 5-6 years ago, there's a ton of push to get people to focus more on the trades again. And
Hmm.
the trades obviously need people. We need to have people doing that. But unfortunately, I think one of the big losses in all of the, in the over expense, the heightened expense of college, and the utilitarian only purpose of college, one of the big casualties of that has been the idea that, college could be a place where you went, not, our parents are of the age where you could go to college, and yeah, you were going to get an education so you could get a job, but you were also like learning culture and learning how to interact as an adult, and maybe you were learning some more basic life skills, like accounting and things like that might help you. College was getting us to be more well-rounded people, and that's a hugely important thing that is going to suffer as as college becomes prohibitively expensive and simultaneously becomes specifically for the purpose of getting a job. And I know that,
Yeah.
like, a big thing that people love to like shit on is like, oh, well, I took basket weaving. Everyone always brings up basket weaving, which isn't a real course, but like, these ideas of these courses that are completely useless in life, or whatever. It makes sense to us in a it's a surface logic kind of thing, but at the same time, there's all kinds of courses that we may not think of as useful that do make us generally a better person in society, a better
Hmm.
person as far as whether it be conversation or just understanding the world around us. And that is hugely important as we, we hope that all adults will be engaged with our political system, with, the environment, with all these things. We will be voters, will be informed. We, God forbid we get called for jury duty. We want to be able to understand the basic ideas of the science that's being explained to us. Even though we're not lawyers or scientists, we need to be able to understand all those things. And so we, at some point in that, all of that, we've created this thing that is tacked on to higher education, which
Hmm.
needs to be everybody. Like, whether if you're a plumber or an electrician or an accountant, or you're a um communicate I did communication, so you're in marketing, you need to you need to be able to engage with the world. And I
Right.
think that we have really lost that sense of things. And I've had conversations with people, and I'm like, I think I'll explain them, like, even if you just go and you take in like classes that interest you, or basic business, if anybody who's in a trade could benefit from business classes,
Oh,
because if
definitely.
you're in a
Definitely.
trade, you're ultimately in a job that most trades, as far as I'm aware, have a limited time span that you're going to be able to physically do them. Whether you're a
Yeah.
mechanic or a mason, these are all hard jobs on your body. And so as you grow older, you need to be able to have the intellect, the education to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be the manager, I'm going to be the business runner, and eventually when I'm not ready to retire, I'll hand that job on to the next person, and then they can hire the next person. But that requires us to have a basic level of knowledge that
Hmm.
I don't know about you. I didn't learn that in high school. I didn't learn that in
Oh no.
middle, in any of my, you know covered education. What do we general education, or you know the 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 levels that we get covered for free, essentially.
Right.
Um, See, I can't
Yeah.
even think of that term. That's how bad. And I
Oh,
have
look.
a master's degree, and I can't think of that word.
yeah, like I guess like what general education, I guess like
Yeah,
public schools. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's funny that you brought up the basket weaving thing because I honestly think that trigonometry is even more useless than basket weaving. Like at least with basket weaving, you can like make art out of it.
yeah.
With trigonometry, like the best you could do is either become a rocket scientist or a math teacher. Like those are the only two things that I can think of that trigonometry would even serve. And you know what? There might be something else. Maybe I should look it up. Maybe I should be curious about it.
Maybe.
But I
It's funny
genuinely
that you bring up trigonometry because my sister and I had a conversation in the last year where, because we went to Catholic school, so we have certain gaps in our educational, what we got educated on, and
yeah.
and trigonometry, I didn't have to take it, and I don't think she had to take it, and there were kids in our school who took it. I just think we didn't end up in those classes. And I was saying to her, I'm 38 at the time. I was probably 37, and I was like, if I'm being honest with you, I don't know what trigonometry is. And she goes, I don't either. I'm assuming it has to do with triangles because it's got, and we didn't, neither of us knew what it was. And we were like, and she's a nurse practitioner. She's doing really well educationally, and she's in a field that she has a lot of high life skills and ability to make a lot of money and all the things that we want. And she didn't know it either, so I didn't feel that bad. But yeah, it is funny that we have I don't think anybody would hear, oh, you took trigonometry and think, well, that's a waste of time. And then basket weaving, potentially, if you make baskets, you have a product you can sell. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
You throw it on Etsy and like make some money. Like I don't see anybody throwing trigonometry on Etsy. Just
right.
just saying. But
I
what I
want
was
to
gonna
ask you. Sorry, you go ahead.
yeah, what I was gonna say was that there's this whole like people look at college and think, oh, elite. They're elitism. Like they're elitists, and this is why like and the trades are shat upon because like, oh, why would you want to be a plumber when you could be a CEO? And I'm like, well, going to college doesn't guarantee that you'll be a CEO. Like, and like you said before, like there's this whole expectation of you finish high school, you go to college, you get a good job, and go about your life. But the way that they created things now, like it doesn't work that way, and a lot of people suffer for it. And going back to what I was saying earlier about the people who never leave their hometown and think that that's what America is, like they think, you go off to college and you become some, like liberal, whatever. And like, it's because you expose yourself to different things, you expose yourself to different people, different cultures, different ways of thinking. And yeah, like it happens, you end up wanting to actually care about people. And like I think that's ultimately what like the intellectual curiosity ends up doing. Like it just helps society as a whole because we learn to actually care about each other and like grow from that.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I agree. I wanted to also, as we're talking about the college aspect and that side of things. So I know that you did some college, but more
Mhm.
importantly, you were in the military, and I mean, I base this largely on you because I don't know that many people that were of our generation that are in the military or were in the military.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that the military, depending on what your experience is, can take some of that place. Like I think people come out of the military with more common sense, or people come out of college with more common sense
I'm trying
than.
not to laugh out loud like people coming out of the military common sense.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm basing that on you.
Okay.
I mean, the few people that I can think of, I think that I personally think that it's and maybe I'm wrong, but I know that like during the 2016 election, they were talking about, or maybe it was 2020, I forget which one. Bernie Sanders, for example, was the number one. He was the number one candidate receiving donations from military, active duty military people.
Hmm.
And when they were talking about why, it was because these people have gone out in the world and seen how the world is outside of the United States. And so they're not like sheltered the same way. So his ideas don't seem that radical if you've been stationed in Germany or,
Right.
like because, there's a decent amount, from what I understand, of people that are in Germany even to this day. And so they're seeing that side of things. And so they've just experienced more of the world. And so we think of, I know there's a ton of right wing in the military, but the military is much more well rounded, from what I understand,
Hmm.
than if you just took a bunch of people who've, like you said, never left their hometown, probably never gone to college, kind of people. They're going to be pretty pigeonholed into whatever the exact people around them are, which isn't, that's not always going to be conservative. Sometimes that, if you're a Massachusetts person, that's going to be a liberal. You're going to be a liberal, and you won't have learned anything else either. I think that, and like I said, it really depends on your experience in the military, because I know, some people go, right to Afghanistan or went right to Iraq, um, and other people get to, go to Germany or somewhere else, and just see the world a bit differently. And also, I'm sure a branch of military differs. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it
the
definitely
Navy
does.
is probably getting a lot more culture than Army or Marines might be, like directly in conflict and stuff. But sorry, this was a winded way of asking the question of what do you think you're, as somebody who is a veteran, what is your perspective on that?
Well, here's my perspective. When I joined the army, I joined the Army National Guard. My intention was to help out with natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, big snowstorms. Like that was what I signed up for. That was in April of 2000. I went to basic training in November of 2000, and then I got back in 2001. And guess what happened? A bunch of people flew into the Twin Towers, and now suddenly we're at war with, I mean, we were already at war with a bunch of people, but
Mhm.
yeah, like having gone over to Iraq, I like a lot of the people I went with, they were very gung ho about the whole idea of I'm a big man with a big gun, and I was never like that. And I
Right.
always looked at them like, we're supposed to be like, like helping these people, like win hearts and minds. That's what George Bush said, right? Win hearts and minds. And like a lot of the civilians, the Iraqi civilians over there that I met, they were the nicest people. They, like loved us. Well, for the most part, they loved us. They thought they thought we were funny, and even though they didn't understand a lot of what we were saying, but they thought we were nice. They thought we were there to help, and I genuinely wanted to help them. Like whatever was going on, like I wanted to help them.
Right.
But yeah, like a lot of the guys I went with were like looking for the whole action thing, thinking they were Rambo, thinking they were, like I never saw Predator. Whoever Arnold Schwarzenegger played in Predator, um, they went over thinking they would be that guy, and a lot of them came back disappointed that they never got to, like engage in a battle. And me, I'm thinking like, how about we actually, get to know these people? Like they're nice people. One guy offered me a goose once. I'll have to tell you that story later. But it was it was an interesting experience, like learning how these people live and how they operate and how they saw us. Like a lot of them, like I would imagine if some other country came to ours and decided that they wanted to occupy and tell us how to run our government and everything, our country would kind of rise up and be kind of angry about it. But like let's go over to another country and do the same thing, and we're the heroes. Like let's not kid ourselves about that, please. But yeah, like me, I looked at my deployment as a way to learn about the way that the world is outside of America. Because like here in America, like I've lived in so many different states. Well, not so many, but I lived in Michigan, I've lived in Kentucky, I lived in Massachusetts, I've visited Missouri, visited California. Like I've been to a bunch of different states, but like nothing in America is like what it is over there. And coming back with that perspective, like makes a lot of what happens here seem very petty, I guess, and kind of evil. Like like I'm looking at it like from a comic book perspective, like we were raised to know who the good guys and the bad guys were, and
Right.
then like we call out the bad guys, and we're socialist, liberal, whatever. It's like no, but they're very clearly evil people, and why aren't we doing anything about it?
Right. Well, unfortunately, I think with nuance, like nuance is going to be another one of those things that suffers as we, I think it's all stems from the same thing, like the fact that I know what I need to know, I don't need to know anything I don't know,
Hmm.
is that same lack of nuance that kind of like creates the black and white evil good and evil like thing, and that just doesn't apply to nearly as much of life as we think it does. And I think, like I said, it stems from that same thing. And
Yeah,
we have this mentality of, you know it it is what it is. The way things are is the way they've always been and the way they always should be. And it frustrates me to no end, the idea that like we just accept things because of that. And so like when I'm aware, Sarah would probably not agree with this, but I'm aware that I'm not always right, but I'm also
oh
aware
no.
that I'll never know everything. And I don't I mean, I feel a curiosity. I like learning things, but it doesn't certain things, not knowing certain things does frustrate me. But there's lots of things that, like, I personally don't know how many miles are to the sun, and I don't really give a crap if I ever find out. But then I do find it interesting, like learning stuff. And sometimes it is like, you know, before I met you, I knew, I have an uncle that was in the Navy when before I was born. So like I didn't know anybody else really that had military experience before I met you, other than him. And
Hmm.
then, you've told me little things here and there, and so I've learned so much about the military. As much as I know about the military, I would say like 75% of what I know is from you.
Yeah.
And and so like it's interesting to me, and like I've had conversations where I've talked to people who have a really bad idea of the military, for example, but because I've learned about it from you, I've been able to say, like, obviously it's got its problems like anything else. That's the other nice thing about knowledge, is just saying, like, I can acknowledge that this has its problems, but
Hmm.
it's, because I know more about it, I also understand that there are potential good things to come out of it. And you know and I think that knowing I almost quoted Captain Planet. Or maybe no, GI Joe.
I was
Which,
gonna say like yeah, it would be GI Joe.
yeah, yeah. But like the idea of just kind of understanding things and being able to like see, oh, you know what, like there is a purpose for this. and
Hmm.
and that is a big part of this curiosity thing for me, is just saying like, oh, okay, like I did not know that. And I learned, I one thing I really like to do is, if I watch historical fiction or anything like that, I Google the whole time I'm Googling. Anytime I'm watching something, if it's in a movie theater, I won't do that. I'll do it afterwards. But like if I'm watching something on TV, I'm like, oh, is this based on, is this a real person? Is this really what happened? And learning the nuance. And I've probably learned more about history from doing that than I did in history classes. And I think engaging is a way better way of learning than
Oh, definitely.
being lectured.
Yeah, exposure to the thing is definitely better than being told about the thing.
Right.
Like, I have this story about my daughter when she was 2. Um, she came to me, like, I was sitting on the floor in the living room, and she came to me with her eyes closed and said, she said, "Hey, Dad, look at me." And I looked at her, and she like started running around with her eyes closed. And I debated, like, should I tell her to open her eyes, or should I let her learn this lesson on her own? And sure enough, she ran straight into a filing cabinet, fell down, like, hurt herself, started crying, and I was like, "See, that's a better teacher."
Yeah.
Like, I helped her up, like, I helped her, like, get dress her wounds and everything, put some ice on it. But she would not have. I feel like she wouldn't have learned that lesson as effectively if I just told her, "Open your eyes."
Right.
like, like sometimes you got to let the experience be the teacher, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like, I can be told every single thing about every single thing, but I will forget half of it. Like, actually, no, I'll forget probably 98% of it. And but if I go out and experience these things, like the military, that's a perfect example. Like, if I am told, like, the army is X, Y, and Z. The army is a bunch of soldiers who go out and kill people, or the army is a bunch of soldiers who go out and help civilians or whatever, or they get deployed to, guard the White House or whatever. Like, you could tell me all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, and then I would go about my business. But now that I've lived that life, like, I know exactly what soldiers do. They sit around and scratch their butts all the time, and like, I I understand the mentality of the soldier now, and it gives me more insight into, like, whenever I see a war movie, I look at it and I'm like, that's not accurate. Nope, nope, that's not how they're supposed to dress. That's not how they're supposed to act. That's not what they're supposed to do. Like, who directed this movie? Who's the consultant on the way that army does stuff? But like, without the experience that I had, I would probably enjoy the movie better because I wouldn't be thinking about that stuff.
True.
but still, but still, um, you know what? Coming back to what I said before, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's definitely a balancing act, I think.
yeah,
Because I don't want to give up
yeah,
sausage.
yeah. You shouldn't have to give up sausage because, and I shouldn't have to give up ham. I'm still repressing that memory, by the way.
I think.
Um,
Sorry, I just had this like moment where I just wanted to say this thing. So just the way I said that was not on purpose, but I think that makes the perfect quote for like a podcast T-shirt that I might maybe I'll make that, and it'll just be like the
I don't
Talking
want
About
to.
the Big Stuff podcast. I don't want to give up sausage.
Oh yeah, you should totally put that on a T-shirt. That would be amazing.
It'll help promote the podcast.
I will
People will be like,
draw the
why does
sausage.
this podcast talk
Like,
about
I'll draw the sausage for you. Like,
nice?
I'll design it. Just say the word, and I'm there.
Awesome. That sounds good. You heard it here, guys. That's the first piece of merch that we're gonna have is our talk is our I don't want to give up sausage uh, t-shirts.
T-shirts. Oh wow, yeah, we should totally do that.
All right, I think that it's probably a good time for us to get to our final question of the episode. So as you know, I ask all my guests the same question, and that question is, what is the joke or impression making fun of that you have enjoyed the most in your life?
That I've enjoyed the most in my life, I think. Let's see. I mean, not necessarily a joke, but people make fun of me because I have this kind of obsession with Power Rangers. Um, like the original Power Rangers, like anything that came after 1996 is crap, but the original Power Rangers was like my thing. I have toys. I have um, my guilty pleasure movie is the 1995 Power Rangers movie. I love it. People make fun of me about that because obviously Power Rangers it's insane, but you know what? I enjoy Power Rangers. You know, like get over it.
Yeah.
And I always love the fact that people make fun of me for it because like it's something that I enjoy, and I like because I find genuine joy in it. Um, I actually kind of pity those who make fun of me for it because it's like, haha, you like Power Rangers, and I'm like, haha, you like nothing. like you're a nihilist. But
Yeah.
yeah, Power Rangers is my thing, and like knowing that I have a thing to enjoy, kind of keeps me going. Like it keeps me um, motivated to continue in this life. I mean, I have family, friends, loved ones that I also enjoy. I enjoy your company, obviously,
Yes.
but
I enjoy yours.
thank you. But as far as just plain childhood or childlike wonder and joy, Power Rangers is the thing that I like, and I welcome anyone to make fun of me about it. Please, let's go.
Nice. Great. Well, that was a really, I think, a great conversation, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking me. It was a pleasure. It's fun.
Thanks. And do you have anything that you want to promote? I'm assuming no, but I could be wrong.
Um, no, I'm not selling anything. I'm not. I'm just me, and I want to promote peace and happiness. If that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And for all the listeners, I just hope that you can subscribe if you like the show, and give us a good review if you like it. You can email me at talkingaboutthebigstuff@gmail.com if you have any comments or questions, or if you want to suggest a topic. I'm always looking for new topics, and also guests depending on you know who is emailing. So yeah, reach out, and we're happy to engage. And I will talk to everybody next week.